So let's talk about the music for your feature film. It's such an important part of the film. It's kind of its own character, and it can also be a little bit of a mystery of how to approach music and the best way to acquire that. And again, the whole thing that we're trying to accomplish here is to make and sell your feature film with little to no money. So let's think about how we're going to do that with music. Now, if you yourself are a talented musician and you have the ability to compose and record, that's great. Bonus, check there. However, most of us are not. So you want to, again, look at your network and think about who is in your network, who is a musician, who has the ability to compose and record something, and who might be excited to work on a feature film. Now, there are a lot of folks out there that want to get into composing, and this might be the opportunity that they're looking for. They might be willing to do it for free or for some gas money or gift card or for a very low rate, just to be able to have their music in a feature film. So that's your first step, is to look in your network and see who's out there. Now, if you look at the groups that you become a part of, those Facebook groups, community groups, the local filmmaker gatherings, a lot of times there are aspiring musicians and artists that are a part of those communities that might even offer up music that they've already written and recorded for use in a film. So look at those, explore those options as well. There are also the options of looking at royalty-free music libraries. There are some of those libraries that exist that are free or available for very little cost. There are others that are at a professional level that are used in the industry that actually aren't that expensive. So you're gonna wanna look into that too. You know, there are some that we use for the commercial work that we do that have also been used in feature films. And those can be as low as $100 or $200 for an annual subscription. So look into that, and if you do have some funds to use, you might want to consider putting that in your budget as well. As you're thinking about music, I also want to encourage you not to fall into this trap that so many filmmakers fall into, and it's the temp track temptation. And what you're going to be tempted to do is, as you're starting to edit and assemble your movie, you're going to start finding music that you think is a good fit for the scenes. And so you're going to pull music from popular musicians and artists out there, stuff that you're never going to be able to afford, but that you think is a good representation of the music that you want in the scene. So you might be pulling a song from the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or Michael Jackson or Coldplay or whoever you're pulling from, and you're going to pop it into your scene, and you're going to fall in love with it. And you're never going to be able to afford that song. And it's going to be really, really hard to replicate that, because they're extremely talented musicians who have had multi-million-dollar recordings and equipment and facilities and talent and resources at their hand to craft those songs. And you're going to fall in love with them, and you're not going to want to replace them, or you're going to dream about the possibility of convincing the artist or the record label to let you use that song for this scene, and it's not going to happen. So just be aware that though you can pull a song and it might be a good reference point for what you're trying to accomplish in the scene creatively and emotionally, you're not going to be able to afford that, and anything that you replace it with is going to feel less than. So it's a tough thing to navigate. And I just want to encourage you to be careful with actually placing those in or getting too attached to those songs. Now, if you do have a little bit of money in your budget and you want to approach licensing songs from a record label or from an established artist, there's some things to keep in mind. On our feature films, when we started out the first couple of films, it was, we had buddies who were musicians, and they could record some music for us. And so we mixed and matched some available free, copyright-free music, some paid subscription music, and then some music from our friends who were artists and musicians and had the ability to record. But as we got into a little bit larger budget, as we did with the Strange Brand of Happy, we started looking at formally licensing music from record labels to fill out the film. And there's some things I learned about licensing that I'll share with you of how to approach that. I started out just contacting labels and kind of fumbling around and asking them, what it took or what the process was for licensing their music. And as I got responses back, I started to collect that data, and I realized there were several things in common with what they were asking me for before they could give me an accurate quote. And so I developed my own template to use for the licensing request. So I already had that form filled out in the own form template that I created. It wasn't theirs unless they provided me one. Most of the time they didn't have one. I filled out mine, submitted it to them, and that made the whole process go a lot faster, that they could get the information that they needed from me quickly and then get back to me with a quote and next steps of what it would take to license the music. So let's take a look at that. These are the things that a record label is going to ask you for if you want to license the music. First, obviously, you'll want your contact information. Then you're going to put in the artist's name, the artist for the song that you want to license, the song title, then the name of your production, the film's budget, the music budget, and the budget for this specific use or song, the total number of songs in the film, other artists that have been licensed for the film, the type of media and distribution the film will have, the scene description in which it will be used, the song use, whether you're talking about using just background vocal or just the music or something like that. You're also going to look at the duration of use. You know, are you going to use the whole song, or is the song just in for 30 seconds? Then the terms. You're talking about the number of years that you're going to license the song for. The territory you have to identify. Are you just licensing for use in the film for just domestic US, or is it worldwide? The projected release date of the film, the production company for the film, the distribution company for the film, key players like the directors and actors, and a synopsis of the film. So you're going to put all of those things into your form. I know some of those things you're not going to be sure about. You can either leave them out or maybe take a guess at them, but try to fill out as much of that information as possible, and then the record label will get back to you. Now, you may be thinking, you know, how much does a song cost? How much does that take to license a song? If you're talking about a song that has been a previous #1 or maybe even landed somewhere in the Billboard Top 40 or something like that at any moment in time, you're probably looking at 6 figures for that song. And that might just be for 30 seconds of use for a song in your film, and you're out $200,000. Now, as you start to get from a lesser known artist, then it's going to get less expensive. I'll tell you from my experience with A Strange Brand of Happy, there was a song that we really wanted to use. It was from an artist who had, we'll say, a really niche following. They were on a sub-label of Warner Music, but if I told you your name, most of you had probably never heard of them. They had been nominated for a Grammy Award, but not super popular, and only been around a couple of years. Their songs had never landed on a mainstream Billboard chart, and we wanted to use their song for our trailer and for a small section of the film, I think maybe 40 seconds of the film. We were actually friends with the father and manager of the band that performed the song and helped write the song. The sister of the band was in our film, and it was still going to take upwards of $10,000 to license 40 seconds of the song and the song in our trailer. I believe it was for 5 years would take $10,000, even at that level. And we negotiated back and forth, and finally we ended up not using the song in the film at all, but we got it for the trailer because it was a really great fit for the trailer. And we still had to pay, I believe it was either $5,000 or $7,000 for the use for 5 years, only for 5 years, to have it in our trailer for 5 years, even with the manager / father of the band advocating for us to get to use the song for as little as possible. So that's what it can look like. Now, on the flip side, a lot of the other songs in that film we were able to get from one record label, an indie label. We connected with them. They saw licensing music for film as a great opportunity to expose new people and make new fans for their artists. And they knew that wasn't going to be a huge source of revenue for them, but it was almost like a marketing spend for them. And so they had a huge slate of artists, and we contacted them and said, we think some of your artists would be a great fit for our film. And what would it take to license that? I gave them all the pertinent information that I just went over. And they came back to us and said, here is a huge zip drive of our whole catalog. Let us know what songs you want. And they were actually willing to license those to us for about $100 a song and have it in perpetuity forever. in all markets to be a part of our film. So that was an amazing fit. So I think we licensed maybe 15 different songs for about $1,500 from them, and that was a great way to make use of our budget for the music and a great exposure for them. So you may want to consider that approach as well as you're trying to license music. Now for my $2,000 budget feature film, Smells Like Community Spirit, for music for that, most of the music for that came from a friend of mine who was both an aspiring filmmaker and a musician. And he had tinkered around with composing music before. And I came to him and said, hey, here's this project. I think it could be a lot of fun. You know, if you have any spare time that you could work on it, that would be great. He was really excited. So he went back and he scored much of the film. He went back with some of his bandmates. They kind of had this side band project going on. They were excited about working on it. So they created the theme song for the movie together. He scored the other parts, the instrumentals. And that was a great way for me to have good music, custom music for the film at little to no expense. So they partnered with me. They did that. They were excited about the opportunity. It was a creative exercise for them and something fun. And it didn't cost me anything, and they were happy to be a part of it. The last element I want to talk to you about with music is this idea that you might use music to cover your insecurities as a filmmaker. I've seen this now multiple times with really great independent films. I saw it in one of our films that we created. I've seen it in the films of some others, some colleagues of mine, that what you might be tempted to do is when you're putting together a scene, you might be a little concerned that the dialogue that has been written isn't quite strong enough. Maybe the cinematography for that scene or the edits isn't quite strong enough. The actor's performance or the quality of the characters isn't quite strong enough. And so you'll want to use music to try to bring the scene up, which music will and it should add something and enhance it. But you might become too dependent upon music for that. And after doing that scene after scene after scene, that the music is a little too in your face or a little too active, or the music, you're using it for the entire length of the scene when maybe it doesn't need to be there. By the time you're halfway through the movie, or maybe even sooner, your audience will experience some music fatigue. They won't even maybe be able to quite articulate it, but they're going to feel that sort of discomfort subconsciously. So be careful with the use of your music. You know, certainly, again, it should enhance. It should be like salt. It should hold it together, preserve the film, and add some enhancement. But you don't want it so salty or so musically filled that it's overwhelming. So have some confidence. Let the actors and the characters carry your scenes, and use the music where it needs to be, but no more than that. You can make a great product, and don't use that music as a crutch that's actually going to become a liability for you.